Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from Bubbles SX1 and says, my 27 female best friend, 26 female, turns out to be crazy and is ruining my wedding. Some background info about this girl. Let's call her Jess. At this point in her life, she's kind of a hot mess. She's one of those people who airs everything on Facebook, who has a new love of my life every month and a new best friend every few months. Her relationships and friendships usually end terribly, with both sides hating each other. How did I become being her best friend? Well, she hasn't always been this way. She was relatively normal 5 years ago when I met her, save for the normal early 20s drama. Within the last 2 years, she's lost her mum to cancer and her grandpa to old age, and she doesn't have any other family. She dropped out of school and found out her boyfriend at the time was cheating on her. After the breakup, I was acting like a shoulder to cry on since she had pretty much hit rock bottom. A few months later, she was telling everyone how close we were and started tagging me as her best friend. A few months ago, I got engaged. Unbeknownst to me, she started telling everyone she was my maid of honor, even though I've always planned on making my sister my maid of honor. But this was right after Jess's mum had died, so I just improvised and said I would have 2 maid of honors. It's still not what I would have liked, but I literally couldn't bring myself to tell this poor girl I don't consider her my best friend. That was my first mistake. About a month after I got engaged, she met a guy. 2 weeks later, she was engaged. A week later, she was married. A month later, she was divorced. Separated. I don't know if it's legal yet. I don't know if anything was legal, but she changed her last name and is still going by that, so I'm guessing it was legal. Ever since the divorce, my own wedding planning has become unbearable. She is constantly telling me how marriage doesn't work, love can't save things, etc., and criticizes how much I'm spending on my wedding when she had hers for a few hundred Vegas wedding. It's gotten to the point where she's rude to the vendors I'm meeting with, but she gets really upset when I don't take her to meetings since she's the maid of honor. So I'm at the point where I just want to cut her out of the wedding, like I should have done in the first place. However, when I confessed this to a mutual friend, my friend let me know to be careful because Jess can be really vindictive. When she found out her ex from a few years ago was getting married, she tried to contact the bride and tell her he was cheating on her. He wasn't. One of her last besties was fired from her job because Jess made multiple email accounts and regularly contacted customer service complaining about her. And since she knows so much info about my wedding already, I'm really terrified that she has somehow tried to sabotage it. So basically, I don't know what to do at this point. I feel like this wedding is getting away from me, but I also don't know if it would be less painful to keep her a part of it, because it would save me all the drama. I don't know what she's capable of, so I'm really worried that she'll somehow make everything harder for me if I don't just grin and bear it. Help. So the first commenter said to OP to add, it might be a good idea to have passwords with your vendors to confirm your identity. OP said, thank you for the advice. I was actually considering the passwords thing, but I don't know if that's taking things too far. I guess I'm kind of worried about vendors resenting me for being high maintenance. But I hear about bridezillas, mumzillas, in-lawzillas all the time, so hopefully this isn't the worst they've seen. Jiggle Daddy Dawkins says, Jesus, just tell her Jess, you knew him for 3 weeks before you married him. What in the ever-loving fuck did you think was going to happen? If I've only seen a girl for 3 weeks, I won't even poop with her in a half-mile radius. OP replied saying, seriously, the week before the wedding, everyone was kindly saying, you sure? You've known him an awfully short time. And her responding, everyone's jealous because they can't be us. Yeah. Angelo Papas says, sounds like you need to have a very uncomfortable talk with this girl. Tell her what you told us here and let her know her negative attitude has no place in planning your wedding. You're sorry things aren't working out for her, but she is not allowed to pile this stuff on you. Tell her that you cannot have her as a maid of honor, and since she seems to think so negatively about marriage, you wouldn't expect her to do this. Up to you if you even let her attend the wedding as a guest. Opie says, oh my god. I haven't even thought about explaining how her negative attitude towards marriage could be the excuse for not having her in the wedding party. That sounds ridiculously logical, but I've been blinded by a flurry of crazy. Thank you. Yeah, and it's sad that my brain is the first thing it went to was the same as the first comment that, passwords on vendors. I didn't even know that was a thing before I started reading Reddit. Don't get me wrong, it absolutely makes sense because there is lots of vindictive people out there, and it seems like just a smart thing to do. I would also, I think, get ahead of the game with some of your friends, your partner, and say, she might start kicking off once I have a whatever chat with her because she's done it in the past. She's caused drama wherever she goes by the sound of it. But around 3 months later after that post, Opie comes in and says, guys, this went full-blown crazy. Before I could have a conversation with Jess, she confronted me about it. Apparently, the mutual I confided in let the whole story leak and a twisted, more dramatic version made its way back to Jess. Shit, meet fan. It was an hour or two of me trying to explain to Jess in a somewhat calm manner that I had felt she had overstepped her boundaries, and it was really taking a mental toll on me while she yelled about what a terrible friend I was and how she's tired of putting all her faith in the wrong people and how she was tired of trying her best to be a good maid of honor. I made the mistake of pointing out that I never asked her to be my maid of honor in the first place, and she responded with, well then I must be delusional. The first step is admitting you have a problem, so progress? Needless to say, we aren't on speaking terms. Shortly after that, I took all your advice and called all of my wedding vendors and let them know that my fiance and I were going to be the only people making any decisions and set up a confirmation word with them. Apparently this shit happens a lot because nobody even asked why. I accidentally forgot to contact the bakery making our cake, but they luckily called me and asked if I was certain I wanted to cancel the wedding cake. Apparently there was a voicemail left on the machine. Wonder how that happened. Here's where things get really nuts. A few weeks after our blow up, she apparently met some guy who is the love of her life. A few weeks after that, they're engaged. I can't make this shit up. She did it again. Then our mutual friends get invitations for her wedding, which is the same date as mine. But since they had RSVP'd for my wedding, a lot of them couldn't make it. A few days before her wedding, they have to cancel because he's already married. And you know what? So is she. I guess she never got officially divorced from that first quickie wedding, so as far as I know, no wedding actually happened. I have no idea if they still plan to. I'm just glad to be away from that circus. But anyways, I got married a few weeks ago. Everything was wonderful, the weather was great, and everyone present was a joy to be around. Except maybe my uncle, who gets a little too dancey when he's drunk, but family. Family! Thank you to everyone who responded and to everyone letting me know I'm not helping matters by going with the flow. I'll be actively practicing caution when making friends, by running from crazy and not comforting it. The commenter on this one said, anyone else think the mutual friend is kind of shitty? She was the one who told OP to be careful about Jess, yet she decided it'd be a good idea to blab about what OP told her, knowing full well it would get back to Jess. Now instead of telling Jess on her own terms, OP got ambushed instead. OP says I actually asked her about it a few days ago after the blow up. Her defense was she didn't actually tell Jess. She told another mutual friend of ours who told someone else who told someone else who told Jess. So technically it wasn't her fault. Which is how by the time it got to Jess, the story was somewhere along the lines of, oh my god, OP is telling everyone you're ruining her life and sabotaging the wedding. All of us met at work. We all worked at the same restaurant long ago, and it was always a drama-filled place. A lot of the same people still work there and still thrive off of the drama. I'm thinking it's time for me to move on from that specific crowd. Cliques are fun in middle school. In your 20s, not so much. Zebra says, and quotes, I will be actively practicing caution when making friends by running from crazy and not comforting it, and says, I'd like to nominate the first candidate for your new policy. The mutual friend who somehow let the story leak and repeated to Jess a twisted, more dramatic version of what you confided in her. Opie says I've decided to distance myself from that crowd. We're in different points in our lives and I just don't find the gossiping all that fun. My real besties from high school who were all bridesmaids have all grown up and we would never pull this crap. I'm just Jenna says, I bet Jess was never actually getting married this time. It was just a plot to ensure at least some of your friends didn't make your wedding. Opie says, I suspect that as well. But since she's done it before, I wouldn't be surprised if she actually went through with it. I'm assuming they were both trying to get divorced before the wedding and realized they wouldn't be able to in time. Because you know, some stuff takes time and can't be erased in a jiffy. So they couldn't do it. I get the feeling this guy is either really stupid or just as crazy as she is. So at least they found each other? And there were some people below talking about the whole working in a restaurant and it is a very gossipy place. Is it? I've never heard of that before. In the UK, I've heard places like call centers being gossipy places. I used to work in a warehouse that was attached to one, and that was a fairly gossipy place. I don't want to generalize every workplace like that because obviously not every call center is going to be like that. Every restaurant isn't going to be like that. But I can remember working there and walking into the kitchen at lunchtimes to use the microwave or get a coffee or whatever. And you just sort of like listen in the background and there was always some little gossip going on. I don't think it really helped that they had some sort of like scoring system about most calls answered and all this kind of stuff. I remember one particular piece of drama where an email went around to the whole company saying something along the lines of don't meddle with other people's lunches in the fridge, etc. You're not allowed to touch them. Put your names on them, blah, blah, blah. And it eventually came out that one of the women was upset with another woman. So instead of talking about it or talking to a higher up, whatever, she decided to go and find the other woman's lunch every day and just dispose of it or eat it. I don't know. We never found out. She was let go shortly after that. That was the same company where I had to have the induction and listen in on some of their phone calls. And it was about the guy getting his ass whipped over a sofa. Ah, wild times. Anyway, now, why do I always go off? Anyway, now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Oh, that's a mental image I didn't want in my head. Now, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Babyflower 2003 and says, my father left me with $73,000 worth of debt without me knowing. I, 21, graduated from university with my undergrad in 2024. At the time of graduating, I thought that I had around 10k of federal student loans. Recently, my mum left my emotionally abusive father, leaving just her, me, and my sibling by ourselves. I was happy at this decision until I found out that the 10k of debt I thought I was in was actually far more than that. I knew that throughout my first year of university, he had taken out some private student loans for me. I was told by my father that since I was only 18 at the time, the bank we loaned from wouldn't allow me to pull out loans since I didn't have good credit. He told me that he'd be able to take out these student loans under my mother's name and that he'd pay them off as soon as I'm done with school. I found out recently that the loans were in fact under my name, with my mum just as a co-signer. Also that the loans were far more than was needed to pay for my tuition. She did not know this either, by the way. He'd taken out a total of 48k in private student loans under my name. I remember signing for these. He did not forge my signature. When I asked exactly what I was signing for or more details about everything, he told me stop asking questions and just trust me. Every time I tried to push for answers, I got that response. I trusted him. I trusted that he would not screw me over. I trusted him to help build my credit when I turned 18. I found out now that he's completely messed up my credit too. My TransUnion score is 669 and my Equifax score is 577. He used my tuition money for rent and bills. I did not know what he used the money he got from my credit cards for. Throughout the past few years, he had convinced us that he was making a lot of money from his job. I now realize that he was likely lying about that and just secretly screwing me over. And my mum too, since he's also messed up her credit. I have 3 closed credit cards that are in debt, I think. One is $6,055 balance, 2250 credit limit with $6,055 due. The second is $12,864 reported balance, 1,000 credit limit with 0 due. Does this second one mean that I don't have to pay off the balance? The third one is $6,228 balance, 6,000 credit limit with 714 due. From what I've looked up, it seems like I owe a little over 35k in credit card debt. I also know that he's messed up my siblings' credit too. I'm not sure by how much. I haven't had the chance to look into that yet. Also, I think it's important to note that he currently owes 3 different family members over 200k. I found this out this week too. Flash forward to now. I found out about these loans a few days ago. I now have a total of 58k in student loan debt in addition to my credit debt. My first student loan payment is due in less than 3 weeks. I need advice. I don't want to take legal action against him. I don't want him to end up in jail. He's currently helping us by paying for our rent and car, even though my mum has left him. My mum doesn't currently have a job, though she is looking, and my job doesn't make nearly enough to provide for ourselves without his help. In August, I will start a higher paying job, and possibly pick up a second job to pay off my debt. So I could ask him then to just send me money every month instead of paying for rent and the car. I could use that money to help pay off the debt. As of right now, I'm not worried about my federal student loans. The minimum payment is doable, and I will receive around 14k of tuition reimbursement in March and April, so that will help. Should I consolidate the private loans? Should I refinance? I briefly considered filing for bankruptcy since I have no assets, but I know that's probably a bad idea. Is there a way for me not to have to deal with this debt without landing him in a lot of trouble? Someone's questioned, did OP know what they signed? OP said it was an electronic signature for a loan where you use the mouse to draw out your signature. He called me over to sign it on his laptop. At the time, I still thought that the money would be under my mother's name. I also did not know how much money it would be. The first commenter says, and quotes, I don't want to take legal action against him, then says, okay, then you're going to have to pay the loans or declare bankruptcy. Another one quotes OP saying, I don't want to take legal action against him, I don't want him to end up in jail, and then says, you need to get past this, because he doesn't care what he does to you, and he is only hurting you. He is hurting and taking advantage of a lot of people, and is actively ruining your futures to benefit himself. Quoting OP again, saying he is currently helping us by paying for our rent and car, even though my mum has left him. And then said he isn't helping you, he's providing just enough to hope you don't take action against him. And the money is money he owes you. Not that he is using to support you out of care for you and your family. He is not helping. He is using money he took from you and others to pay for that. You are paying for that help in the form of increasing debt, not him. And if he doesn't face serious repercussions for his actions, he's going to keep doing it, and you will never get out of the increasing debt he'll continue to saddle you and everyone else with. At the very least, you need to make sure you and your siblings' credit is locked down now to prevent him from taking out new cards and loans under your names. But you really need to just report him to the police so you can remove the debt. Why are you so worried about ruining his life when he isn't worried about ruining the lives of you, your siblings, and everyone else he has taken advantage of? If anyone ruins his life, it will be him by his own actions. OP came in with an update and said, after reading all the responses and talking with some close friends of mine, I see that the best thing to do is file against him. I brought up the topic to my mother last night, and she, being very religious, said, no, don't do that. God wouldn't want you to harm another person like this, let alone your own father. She said that she'd rather take on the private student loan debt by refinancing and transferring it to her, but honestly, that wouldn't remove the credit card debt, and it'll leave her with the debt instead. I don't think that's a good choice. I think that if I file against my dad, my mother will kick me out, so if I file, I will already be prepared to move out. That being said, I currently only have 2k saved up from work, and that will not be enough to move out on my own. I'd need more money to get a car, place, and overall survive. I just moved to the city I'm in less than a year ago, so I don't have many people to rely on here. My boyfriend offered to let me live at his family's house, but I'd still need to be able to travel to and from work, and I don't want to overstay my welcome. I also don't have the option to move because I have to work in the state of Florida to qualify for my university's tuition reimbursement. In March, I have over 14k of tuition reimbursement coming in. My best bet would be to wait until March and then leave. It breaks my heart to do this because I could be disowned by every person in my family, but I can't let myself live with this debt. Prior to this, I thought I only had 10k worth of debt, and with that I could have easily lived a good life and paid it off quickly. I'm still not 100% set on this decision, but I do realize that it's a logical thing to do. I want to speak with my siblings to see how much debt my father put them in, and to see if they'd want to file too. I also want to speak with a lawyer or someone more knowledgeable than me about this. Does anyone have any advice based on this update? Hope he adds a little update as well in the comments saying, my mum's religious comments are obviously ridiculous, but I'm mostly looking for help on how to file or what to expect. I have records showing 23k of refunds. Went to a bank account he controlled. I didn't see a dime of that money, and I think he used it to pay for a vacation. Not gonna lie. Someone says, is it possible for OP to find a new place or rent near their job? OP says, I'm a substitute teacher. I work at different schools around the county, so it wouldn't be possible for me to get a job near work, unfortunately. Someone said, how did OP's father get involved on OP signing their documents with their mother? OP says, all I did was sign. He filled out everything. Now, I understand looking back that I was stupid for signing without asking. But after some further looking into things, I see that the amount of money I was refunded by my school was an insane amount and not an amount I could have spent by myself in one semester. AKA 12k extra refunded in a semester where my tuition was only 2k. He must have used that money himself on a non-education related things. Also the credit cards I did not sign for. I didn't even know that you signed for credit cards. He did that all himself. Couple more comments that says, it sounds to me like both your mum and your dad are in this together, and that if you don't file against them, they will come out ahead, and you will come out behind. Another comment that says, God didn't want your mum to leave your dad either, but she did. So she doesn't have a leg to stand on when it's preaching to you. Report him to anyone you can. Also, if you were under 18 years old, you can't be held responsible for any contracts. What an absolute horrible man. A mum talking about God wouldn't want you to harm another person like this, let alone your own father. One of the 10 commandments is that thou shalt not steal. Absolutely file against him. If he's done this to you, other people, your siblings as well, he doesn't care. I think it's always important to look at it from an outside perspective, especially for OP. And if you read this yourself, what would you say to that person? You would say absolutely file against him because he's willingly chosen to damage your life like this. He's chosen this. I'm not sure about the legalities or anything like that, or if you'll ever get that money back, or if it'll come off your credit, but that guy deserves what's coming to him, and you absolutely should file. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.